The Galactic Academy floated in the void between stars, a magnificent station where the galaxy's brightest young minds gathered to learn. Here, the children of diplomats, warriors, and scholars from 100 species mingled in halls of crystalline metal. But in the lower maintenance levels, where few ever ventured, lived those who kept the station running: the janitors, technicians, and their families. Helen worked the night shift, her mop and cleaning solutions her only companions as she scrubbed floors that would gleam under tomorrow's artificial dawn. Her son, Frank, often accompanied her, too young to be left alone in their cramped quarters. At 8 years old, he'd learned to be quiet, to stay out of the way, to be invisible. That was how humans survived here, by being useful and unseen. Tonight, as Helen cleaned the observation deck overlooking the nursery wing, Frank pressed his face against the transparent aluminum, watching the alien children sleep in their specialized pods. Methane breathers in their cloudy chambers. Silicon-based younglings in their heated cradles. And in the corner, isolated from the others, a dragon infant curled in a nest of heat-resistant fabric. The Draconians were an ancient race, proud and powerful. Their empire spanned 3 sectors, and their warriors were legendary. To see one of their young here was rare. The dragons rarely trusted other species with their offspring. Frank had seen the baby dragon before, had watched it play with its twin brother just weeks ago. 2 perfect mirror images, their scales shimmering between gold and copper, their small wings fluttering with innocent joy. But then the sickness came, the mysterious plague that even the station's advanced medicine couldn't cure. One twin had died, and the other, the surviving dragon baby, was weeping. The sound cut through the observation deck's acoustic dampening, a mournful keening that made Frank's chest ache. The infant's scales had dulled to ash gray, and it lay motionless except for the shuddering of its tiny ribs. "Mom," Frank whispered. "He's crying again." Helen paused, wringing out her mop. Her face was tired, lined with the weight of working double shifts to afford their passage to somewhere, anywhere, better than this. "I know, baby, but there's nothing we can do. The dragon nurses won't let anyone near him. He's sad because his brother died." "I know. He's lonely." Helen set down her equipment and knelt beside her son, pulling him into a hug. "The universe is full of lonely things, Frank. We can't fix them all." But Frank couldn't look away from the grieving infant. Something in those alien eyes, barely visible through the nursery glass, seemed to recognize him. To see him, when so many others looked through him like he was just another piece of station equipment. The next night, Frank came prepared. While Helen cleaned the medical wing, he slipped away with a small bundle under his arm, his blanket, worn and patched but still soft. The security systems barely registered him. Human children were too insignificant to track. The nursery door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the temperature was precisely calibrated for each species. The dragon section radiated heat that made Frank's skin prickle with sweat, but he pushed forward. The baby dragon lay in its nest, those massive golden eyes dim with grief. Up close, Frank could see it was larger than he'd thought, already the size of a large dog, though only months old. Its claws could easily tear through him. "Hey," Frank whispered, approaching slowly. "I'm Frank. I know you're sad. I know what it's like to lose someone." The dragon's head lifted slightly, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. A low rumble emanated from its chest, not quite a growl, but a question. Frank sat down cross-legged, just outside the nest. "I had a dad once. He died when I was little. I don't remember much, but I remember being scared and alone." He unfolded his blanket. This was his. "Mom says he used to wrap me in it." The dragon infant watched him with ancient intelligence flickering behind juvenile eyes. Slowly, so slowly, it extended its snout toward the blanket. "You miss your brother," Frank continued. "I get it. You probably played together, right? Probably did everything together." He swallowed hard. "But he wouldn't want you to just give up. He'd want you to live, to be strong." The dragon made a sound, a chirp, almost musical, heartbreakingly young. Frank made a decision that would change 2 lives forever. He stood and climbed carefully into the nest, ignoring the heat that made his eyes water. He draped his father's blanket over the dragon's back and sat beside it. "I'll be your brother," Frank said simply, "if you want. I know I'm not a dragon, and I can't fly or breathe fire or any of that cool stuff. But I can be here. I can talk to you. We can be lonely together, and maybe that'll make us less lonely." The dragon stared at him for a long moment. Then, with a movement that was surprisingly gentle for a creature of claws and scales, it rested its heavy head on Frank's lap. And that's how Helen found them an hour later, her heart leaping into her throat. But before she could scream, she saw her son's peaceful face, his hand stroking the dragon's scales, both of them sleeping in the too-hot nest. The next morning, the station erupted in chaos. A human child in the dragon nursery was unprecedented, potentially disastrous. The draconian ambassador arrived with his full retinue, scales blazing with fury, but when they entered the nursery, they found the infant dragon awake and alert for the first time in weeks, its scales regaining their golden luster. It was chirping happily, playing with a small human boy who laughed as the dragon gently tugged at his shirt. The ambassador's eyes widened. In draconian culture, there was an ancient concept, Kathar, the bond brother, chosen not by blood but by soul. It was said that dragons knew their Kathar instantly, and the bond, once formed, was unbreakable. The ambassador rumbled, his voice shaking the walls. "What is his name?" Helen stepped forward, terrified but defiant. "Frank. His name is Frank." The ambassador watched the two younglings play for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he bowed, a gesture of profound respect. "Helen of the humans, your son has saved the last heir of the Draconi's bloodline. He has done what our finest healers could not. He has reminded my nephew that life continues, that bonds can be reformed." He straightened, and his eyes blazed with gold fire. "By ancient law, Frank is now Kathar to Prince Scareth. He is bone of our bone, fire of our fire. He will be educated as draconian nobility, wanting for nothing, honored among our people." Helen's knees nearly gave out. We're just janitors. You are the mother of a dragon's bond brother," the ambassador corrected. "You will never be just anything again." Frank, oblivious to the politics, was teaching the young prince how to stack building blocks. The dragon knocked them over with his tail, and both dissolved into laughter, one high and human, one a musical rumble that in the lower decks. Humans whispered of the miracle. A janitor's son, elevated to alien nobility. But those who knew Frank understood it wasn't about elevation at all, that it was about seeing someone else's pain and choosing, despite having so little himself, to offer what he had: companionship, kindness, and the simple promise that no one should face the darkness alone. The dragon baby had wept for his lost twin. But in a human child with nothing but a worn blanket and an enormous heart, he found something just as precious: a chosen brother who would stand beside him, now and always, proving that the strongest bonds aren't forged by scales and fire, but by compassion that transcends species, status, and stars.